Hello and welcome to episode 28 of The Closing Track, the official podcast of AnotherAscendingLark.com, where the faith that you believe collides with the music that you love. I am Austin, your host, and I'm joined across from the table, as always, with...
Brett, the deaf music critic.
Would you like to explain why you were called a deaf music critic? Why that insult was bestowed upon you?
Well, the other day, on Anubis Gates' official Facebook page, they once again shared the Another Ascending Lark page, and in this particular post, we did a staff speak section where each of us picked an album that we point at and say, this is what embodies music. And I picked Anubis Gates' Horizons, and they quoted me in their share of the post, and they're like, thanks, Brett. And at first, Austin and I are just blown away.
Yeah, it was freaking out. I mean, because they shared us once before, but they didn't. They just shared the review of Anubis Gates' album. They didn't quote it, or they just put the link up there and called it good.
Yeah, they directly quoted me and said, thanks, Brett. So it felt pretty dang cool.
Yeah.
But the second comment on there was about this guy who says either Brett is deaf or he has never heard the album The Detached.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you've heard The Detached or not.
I have not.
Okay, so logically, it means that you haven't heard The Detached. Therefore, you're not deaf.
Yes.
So good to know that, some random troll on Anubis Gates' Facebook page is capable of logically setting up a scenario where you're not deaf.
Yeah.
Then there'd be a problem.
Pretty much everyone else on the post, though, was like, yeah, I agree with him. This album is great, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. And so the deaf music critic, like, there's just a ring to that.
Yes.
There's an authentic, powerful ring to deaf music critic. Maybe it's because it's an oxymoron, or maybe because Beethoven was a genius. I don't know. Yeah. Probably because Beethoven was a genius.
Yeah, he was.
He was definitely a genius. We got a great show planned for you today. We are giving you a heads up to put on your thinking caps and to be prepared to dive into what may be our most controversial episode to date, as we take this episode and dedicate it to the new Nightwish album, and as we break down and discuss and critique and evaluate and all the other synonyms in the dictionary, the worldview that is contained in the album, and especially the statements made by our good old friend, sarcastic font, Richard Dawkins.
Yes.
I totally don't know Richard Dawkins personally, nor do I really consider him a friend, because he's Richard Dawkins. So, if you want to contact us, though, you can find us on Facebook at Another Ascending Lark. You can find us on Twitter at AALblog. You can send us an email at anotheraascendinglark@gmail.com. And, of course, you can visit the brand new anotheraascendinglark.com, where we will have the notes for this episode, and you can read other reviews and other top-notch articles that might just totally change and rock your world. I mean, I can't make any promises, so don't sue me if it doesn't. But yeah, you should check that out, especially if you're a listener today and you disagree with Brett and mine's assessment of the Nightwish album. We definitely want to hear from you, and we would definitely like to chat with you and hear your thoughts on it. So don't be afraid to hit us up. We definitely would like to hear from the other side as well. But Brett, let's get into non-Nightwish things first.
Yes.
We got some non-Nightwish stuff to cover. So I played for you just a little bit ago the new Mumford and Sons song, The Wolf. What did you think of it?
It sounded good, but I was like, are you sure this is Mumford and Sons?
Did you get the right band? No, Mumford and Sons dropped another single for their upcoming album earlier in this week called The Wolf. I have a clip of this song, which if you can correctly guess the dominant influence and sound of this clip, I'm not going to give you any money. I'm just going to say, yeah, good job. You got it right. But this is from the pre-chorus of The Wolf from Mumford and Sons' new album, Wilder Mind.
Been wondering for days how you felt me slip your mind. Leave behind your wants and ways. I wanna learn to love and kind. 'Cause you're all I ever long
Yeah, so definitely not banjo-y.
No, definitely not Sign No More Part 3.
Yeah, definitely not. Well, I mean, Mumford and Sons, as far as like the established Mumford and Sons sense, I like it,
Yeah.
but it also reminds me of a B-side from U2's "How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb," which that's a great album. I love that album. It's just, I don't know. I'm still very hesitant about this new Mumford and Sons album. I'm not gonna lie.
I don't know. I'm pretty excited about it.
Oh, I'm excited, but it's not. It's a cautious excited.
Yeah, I'm not cautious at all. I'm throwing caution to the wind on this one, and like, heck yeah, I want to listen to this new music already.
You know what? More power to you there. One other piece of news, and I actually found this out this morning. IndieVisionMusic.com is shutting down. For those of you who aren't familiar with IndieVisionMusic.com, it's like one of three of the major Christian web publications for the Christian music market. There's Jesus Freak Hideout, there's Indie Vision Music, and then there's New Release Tuesday. I don't care for New Release Tuesday. I don't really care for them. Jesus Freak Hideout I have a lot of respect for, and I have a lot of respect for Indie Vision Music. And yeah, they posted a thing a couple of days ago that they're done, which is kind of sad because, I mean, it's always sad to see, something good come to an end, especially when no, I'm not even going to go there. Like, I could go somewhere really mean, but I'm not going to do that. So if you're an Indie Vision music person and you didn't know that, congratulations. Now you know, and now it can benefit your life in very little ways whatsoever. But Brett has the far more important things to know. Like, Brett, you've got stuff that, like, people genuinely need to know about, that they need to reorient their lives around.
Definitely, you really need to pay attention to what I have to say. First off, Justin Bieber is wanted in Argentina.
I mean, so cancel, if you plan on seeing Justin Bieber, cancel your tickets. Like, cancel, your reservations for the show, because he's a runaway.
Yes, indeed. And definitely, if you bought tickets and you're from Argentina, he's probably not going to come back anytime soon to perform in Argentina. I'm sorry to tell you that.
Yeah. What happened to Mr. Bieber?
Allegedly, back in 2013, he ordered 2 of his bodyguards to attack a photographer.
I thought that's what bodyguards were for, though.
Kind of.
I mean, if I had bodyguards and if somebody was doing something annoying, I would certainly be tempted to just say, "Bodyguard, attack."
Yes, as would I, but when it's just a dude taking pictures and you're like, "Terrence and Hugo, I choose you," and throw your Pokeballs and attack him.
I mean, why not? I mean, why not? But apparently Argentina justice doesn't care. Argentina justice don't care.
Yes. And also some incredible news. I was absolutely depressed at first because I thought that this might not happen because of various circumstances, but I'm very pleased to tell you all that my greatest hope is happening. As of today, $55,673 of $500,000 in an Indiegogo campaign has been raised for this project. Now it has 26 days left, so it's still plenty of time to give. But this is raising funds to make Left Behind 2.
Whoa! I wish I
Yay.
had some sort of like awful sound effect to describe the awful. No, that was good. But,
Thank you.
But that was actually very good, but not what I was thinking of. Yeah, so Left Behind 2. It says quite a bit when you have to crowdfund a sequel.
Yes.
That's telling so much.
It tells a lot, too, when the general Christian market, who doesn't really care about art at all, and will just consume anything that has Jesus on it, when even they say this movie is terrible.
Yeah, I mean, this movie has a 2% on Rotten Tomatoes. Of 61 reviews, like published online reviews, only one of them is favorable. The rest are not.
Which generally, I mean, I've seen some movies that I really like and have big cult followings, but on websites like Rotten Tomatoes have gotten bad ratings. But when the rating is that bad, then there's something wrong.
I mean, that...
And there's definitely something wrong when I first saw the theatrical release poster and thought it was a terrible photoshopped fan-made one.
Well, I mean, yeah, the Nicolas Cage face on the trailer poster has been mocked to no end, but
Yeah, I'm just like, why would you present your movie using that face?
you're desperate.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you're desperate because, yeah, I mean, the fact that they're making a sequel, I think he says in the article, too, that he intends, the director of this, intends to bring the entirety of the series to the big screen.
Yes. He quotes saying, "The last line in the Left Behind movie was an important one. This is only the beginning. There's a lot of story to tell, and ultimately, until my last breath or until the Lord returns, I'll be pushing to bring the entire story of the end time prophecies to the big screen." So, to answer the question I'm asked more than any other, yes, there will be a sequel.
What if, hypothetically speaking, Left Behind was the agent through which the rapture actually happened? That
What do you mean?
that the world
That it's one of the judgments?
Yes. That
Yeah.
that's one of the left behind is evidence of the state of the world, and it has reached the point where Jesus has to come and take his church out of the tribulation that is getting started.
It's like, all right, bros, your eschatology has gotten bad enough. Let's stop.
Yeah,
Stop it. Now your eschatology will be perfect. Stop it.
Yeah, for the record, neither Brett or I hold to rapture theory, and rapture is over, just not there.
I mean, basically, the only verse that I can think of that really would endorse it says that God comes for his people, but I mean, that could mean a lot of things.
That could mean a bunch of things.
Like one particular lady I work with quotes that verse every time I say I don't think there'll be a rapture.
But Left Behind says it, I believe it, so it must be true.
She also is reading Four Blood Moons by John Hagee.
Oh, gosh. Well, we need to just do an episode where and this will have to be on a weekend where there's just nothing to talk about, where we just go through and we just, examine literature and film and how it's made, eschatology just impossible for Christians.
Definitely.
It's just sad. Now, Left Behind 2, now, this is interesting, because this could be, if you have some change lying around and if you want to, make a change to, Left Behind, some of the higher tiered prize packs are offer you the chance to have a minute amount of say or influence in the production of the film. So, if you're sitting on, $7,000 and you want to make a difference and make a dent into Left Behind, you can contribute to their Indiegogo campaign, which I should also add that unlike Kickstarter, and I think this is where Indiegogo succeeds over Kickstarter in many ways, is that unlike Kickstarter, where, if you don't make the money, doesn't matter how close you got to the goal, you don't get any of it. You either get all of the money or you don't get any of it. This Indiegogo campaign is called a Flex Fund campaign, which means that even if they don't hit their goal, they'll still get money.
Yes. And so, theoretically, if I donated $7,000, I could tell them to change the focus of the movie to be either post-mill or A-mill.
Well, let me pull up the Left Behind.
That would be impossible in the storyline by now, though.
Yeah. I think based on the 700 or not the 700, the $7,000 level, you can have a speaking role, which of course is not, you're not free to decide what you're going to say. You have to say whatever they tell you to say, which is fine.
So I can't just turn and say something random like I'm sick and tired of peanut butter right before a meteor hits me or something.
I mean, outtakes. I guess for outtakes, but as far as actually making it into the movie, no, I don't think so. I definitely don't think so. So yeah, Left Behind. I just thought we needed some good old Left Behind news.
Indeed.
And we got our good Left Behind news. Well, this episode is going to look a little bit different than normal episodes. Normally, we have album reviews, and then we move into the main subject of whatever today's episode might be. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different in that we are going to collapse the two together. And this episode is just going to be a really long review and critique of the new Nightwish album, "Endless Forms Most Beautiful." Before we get into the majority of the critique part, we're going to spend some time talking about the things that we liked about the album, because there's a lot to like on this album, and we're going to approach this, and we're going to approach this episode with the Francis Schaeffer fourfold standard of judgment that we talked about a couple weeks ago. And for those of you who may not have heard that episode, Francis Schaeffer, in his book Art in the Bible, encourages Christians to approach works of art under four points of criteria. First one is the technicality. How good is the music? How good is the songwriting? How good is the production? This doesn't have anything to do with like the worldview or anything. This is just, the quality of the music and the technicality behind it in of itself. The second thing is the validity. Is this work of art true to the artist, or did the artist just make this because, they were looking to make a paycheck, or, you can fill in the blank. Is this an honest representation of what the artist believes? Third point, and this is the point that we will spend most of the episode talking on, is the worldview and the intellectual content, which, if you're familiar with the Nightwish album, you know why we will be spending a lot of time talking about it, because it's got Richard Dawkins on it.
Yay!
Yay! No, not really. And then the fourth point that Schaeffer talks about is the integration of the content and the way it's presented, meaning like how does the content come across in the medium that it's presented. And so we are going to now evaluate this album with those 4 points. So let's start with the things that we liked, because I think, I'm not going to lie, Brett, I really liked this album.
Yeah, this, technicality-wise, was a genius album.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. As far as the technicality goes, like the first category,
They blew it out of the water.
Wow.
And I'm especially happy that we have a new vocalist in Nightwish. For those of you who don't know, there are now 3. There was Tarja, who was the original, got kicked out of the band. I don't remember the name of the second singer.
She was only in one album, I believe. I believe she
Like,
was
it was
just
1 or 2, but...
Yeah, she was definitely in Imaginarium, which didn't care for that album at all.
I mean, anyways, she's a good vocalist. I mean, her voice sounds good. She knows what she's doing. But her style just doesn't mesh with the rest of Nightwish.
What, are you talking about, the last one or this one?
The last one.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it sounds like 2 different styles are clashing together with her. But with this current one, you can tell it's not Tarja. Honestly, I think Tarja's a better vocalist than the current one, but
Yeah.
she at least meshes with the band well, and it sounds like one complete set. It sounds like they're one unit.
Yeah, her name is, and I apologize in advance if I butcher this, Floor Jansen is her name. And I agree. She's not up to Tarja, but she's in the same league.
Yeah.
Excuse me, beer burp. Definitely in the same league. She reminds me a lot of Simone Simmons from Epica, particularly in songs like Weak Fantasy and Our Decades Under the Sun. I was like, if I didn't know better, I would say this is Simone Simmons, which I'm a big fan of Simone Simmons and her singing abilities, and so I wasn't complaining about that at all. But yeah, the new vocalist, I like it a lot. I like her a lot.
And then one thing, too, I have to say, Austin, as you can attest to, pretty much anything that sounds Irish at all, I'm just like, yay. And at least 2 songs I can think of at the moment, Our Walden, is it Our Walden?
My Walden.
My Walden, and Edema Rue have very Irish sections in them. And it just makes me go, yay.
Your brief little your Irish quota was filled
Yes.
with the sounds of Maya Walden. I actually, when I first started hearing Maya Walden, I thought was like, haven't I heard this song before? It sounds very similar to some other Nightwish tracks from prior albums, but yeah, I definitely thought that the inclusion of the Irish elements in the album was really, really nice. But as far as technicality goes, like, I definitely agree that the technicality of the album is superb.
Yes.
The only, and I literally mean the only thing that I wish could have been a little bit better is the rhythm guitar work.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I mean, not that it's not bad, but it's not quite up to the same caliber of complexity. Say that 5 times fast. As with the rest of the album, and it's got a great crunchy tone, but The rhythm guitar sections are honestly very forgettable. They're not bad, but they're forgettable. But I mean, when I say literally, that's the only thing about the album musically that I don't like. I mean, literally, that's it. That's the only singular thing. So much to like. Oh my gosh, so much in terms of the compositions. They're all so rich and so full and so.
I mean, it would take an entire episode to break this down. Wait a minute.
I see what you did there. Yeah, I definitely see what you did there. So when it comes to like pinning the grade for the album, for this particular episode, I'm going to do an average of the 4 categories. So I'll take the 4 categories, assign them an individual grade, and then average those grades together. When it comes to the technicality of this album, 9.75.
Definitely.
I mean, if the rhythm guitar section had been better, 10. Like literally that only single thing kept it from being a 10 was the rhythm guitar could have been a little bit more creative, I guess. 9.75 as far as the technicality of the album. It's incredible.
Yes.
Especially since the deluxe version has just the instrumental versions of the album as well.
Yes, which is kind of awesome.
Which is really, really nice.
So you can enjoy the technicality of the album without listening to all the
stuff.
Yes, that we'll cover later. I can't get into it now.
So if you were to pin a number as far as technicality goes, what would you put it at?
I agree, 9.75.
Okay. Validity. So we're now approaching Worldview territory, you know, the great uncharted Worldview territory. Here's the thing. They've never been one to present themselves as someone that they're not. And I think this album, definitely more than others, like, this is authentically them.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, before, they didn't really go into topics of naturalism and that sort of stuff, but now they're actually expressing their personal beliefs, and so this might even be more valid than any of their previous albums.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. The only thing, when it comes to the validity, is that the majority of the content that gives, you know, I don't know, I'm trying to think of the phrase to use for it. The presence of Richard Dawkins kind of, I think, detracts from the validity just a little bit, in that he might have said things that they wanted him to say, but it would have been nice to have the band, like, I don't know, own the full extent of everything they said on the album. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like that if one of the males in the group spoke instead of Dawkins.
But, I mean, let's be honest, though. Dawkins has an awesome accent.
Yes, that is one thing I will give Dawkins. He has an awesome speaking voice.
I mean, not gonna lie. On the aesthetic level, I enjoy listening to Richard Dawkins speak.
Which is one thing that's just sad. Imagine if he was a good preacher instead of an atheist, listening to one of those sermons.
Man, if only Richard Dawkins was a preacher.
Yes.
That should be the title of this episode.
Yeah.
No, that's not going to be the title of this episode. So as far as like the validity goes, I'm going to pin this at an 8. I mean, I thought that it was present. It wasn't like Sufjan Stevens level, like wear your entire life on your lyrics and sleeves, but I mean, they're honest to themselves and they're honestly representing themselves and what they believe. So I'll give it an 8.
I'd probably put 8.5.
Okay, so you're a little bit higher. Let's should we, since we're going to be spending most of the time talking about the worldview, should we just move past worldview and just do integration, or should we just dive on in?
Let's do integration.
Okay, let's just
because I guarantee you, if we went to worldview now, we're gonna forget about integration.
It's probably a good point. So integration, 10, like straight up 10.
Yeah,
10. I can't speak highly enough of the brilliance of this album. It's that good, people. Like, if you're a metalhead, like, and when we talk about metal, you know, like many people, they just immediately start assuming, you know, screaming, growling.
Yeah, there's none of that in this album.
Yeah, this is beautiful.
I mean, I'd probably call it gothic metal, which a lot of people think gothic metal, screaming. No, generally when people say gothic metal, there's a female singer who sings very beautifully,
Yeah.
like Floor.
And I would say gothic metal maybe as a subcategory, but it's straightforwardly progressive metal with extremely strong classical overtones in it.
Well, that's part of goth metal is the classical overtones.
Fair enough. But yeah, the content meshes gorgeously with the album, which is they hit the target on that part, but in our eyes, that also is not a good thing because we take some serious issues with the worldview claims of the album, and that because the content and the vehicle it's presented in mesh so well together, it amplifies the impact of the content more than I think either of us would like for it to be. It makes it stronger than I wish it was. But no, as far as that, 10 for me. And you said 10 as well, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's
Now for the fun part.
Now for the fun part. So, we like this album. Like, I like this album. Even with all the things taken into account that we're about to say, I like this album.
Yes.
I liked it. I liked it a lot. This is, as far as I'm concerned, this is the album to beat for Progressive Metal Album of the Year. Really is. But we cannot ignore the worldview and the things said on this album as it pertains to the grand picture of life, and as the album takes some pretty strong stands against Christianity, and actually I would say borrows things from Christianity, and then fails to acknowledge the creator and fails to acknowledge the God who makes those things possible in the process.
Vehemently denies the God that made all those things possible.
Yeah, so, we talked about several weeks ago that Richard Dawkins was going to be on the album, and we didn't really know exactly what that was going to take yet.
I had heard that it was going to be more of a scientific analysis than anything. It wasn't going to be an atheistic thing, which I'm like, okay. I'm like, yeah, a lot of what he said was definitely scientific standpoint, but the stuff he said was from an atheistic worldview.
Definitely. And we wanted to counter that as best as we are able. So Dawkins has 4 monologues in the album. He's got one brief monologue that is the first thing that you hear on the album, and then he's got 3 and the final track, The Greatest Show on Earth, which, by the way, is the title of one of Dawkins' books. Coincidence? I think not. Yeah, I don't think that's a coincidence at all. So we're going to take time to address each quote from Dawkins, and we're just going to talk about it. And I've got clips of each of those quotes, so that way you can hear exactly what Dawkins says, and it's particularly with the last 2 quotes, you can kind of get a bit of a taste of the music of the album. The first one doesn't have any music, but the other 2 definitely do. The last one we're not going to play because it's actually a quote from Charles Darwin, and so we're just going to read Darwin's quote and just call it that. So this is the first statement that Richard Dawkins makes on the album. This is off the opening track, "Shudder Before the Beautiful."
Deepest solace lies in understanding. This ancient unseen stream, a shudder before the beautiful.
I think I missed the opening part of the article, of the quote, but the deepest solace lies in understanding. This ancient unseen stream, a shudder before the beautiful.
Solace.
No.
Yes, it's solace.
Okay, whatever. So right off the bat, when I first heard this, I just kind of shrugged my shoulders. I was just like, yeah, okay, whatever.
It's definitely a very ambiguous statement. Really, the only sentence to me that has much meaning is the first one.
Yeah, which, depending upon in understanding, that's the battleground there, is understanding what Dawkins would say, and he does say later in the album, in understanding the universe that we inhabit, we would say understanding God as the creator of said universe and as the one who has endowed us with the ability to study said universe.
Yeah, because just that statement, the deepest solace lies in understanding, I'm like, yes, understanding Jesus,
Yeah,
understanding the creator,
Yeah. No.
but we just leave it as the deepest solace lies in understanding. It definitely needs an addendum. You definitely need to expand on that.
Yeah. So that particular quote, we didn't. I mean, once he finishes that statement, the album kicks in, and you're just like, "Duh, it's awesome."
Yeah.
And you don't really care anymore. It's the second, and in particular the third quote that definitely will give us some stuff to talk about. So this is Dawkins' second statement, which happens probably 6-ish minutes into the closing track, the greatest show on earth.
After sleeping through 100 million centuries, we have finally opened our eyes on a sumptuous planet, sparkling with color, bountiful with life. Within decades, we must close our eyes again. Isn't it a noble and enlightened way of spending our brief time in the sun? To work at understanding the universe and how we have come to wake up in it.
Which again, I have to say, Irish sounding music.
Yeah, Irish sounding music for sure. So yeah, when I first heard this statement, I mean, it comes at a point in the song. It had done some really, really good build up to a musical climax, and then again immediately after that statement, the band comes in and it's pounding, it's fast, it's gorgeous, it's intricate and complicated. Yeah, so okay, there's some stuff to work with in this particular quote, maybe more so than the last one. First of all, he says, "Isn't it a noble and enlightened way of spending our brief time in the sun to work at understanding the universe and how we have come to wake up in it?" Where does he get this nobility from?
Maybe because that's what he spent his life's work doing, and he wants to think he's being noble by doing it.
Well, okay, that's fine, but that's a very shallow understanding of the word noble. Noble according to who or to what?
Yeah.
I mean, that's...
Again, with the atheistic worldview, there is no standard for anything.
Well, they try to posit a standard, but here's the thing. Dawkins can't ground that nobility in anything that'll actually give it weight.
Exactly.
He's not going to be able to point to something and say, what I do with my life is noble because this is the standard by which nobility is measured by. There is no standard. And Dawkins himself has opined similar ideas in all of his other stuff. So it's kind of surprising for him to actually to make a statement about nobility when he's got no real way to ground it in anything. I mean, it just kind of exists in a vacuum. He doesn't have anywhere to ground it. But here's the other thing too, is that Dawkins' own worldview defeats the reason why it's noble to spend his time studying the universe.
Yeah, I mean, if everything's random, if truly the universe happened because nothing exploded and then a bunch of random events led to the way it is now, it means nothing.
Well, and
and he talks about being on a sumptuous planet, sparkling with color, bountiful with life, which definitely has very beautiful overtones to it. It definitely suggests beauty, a standard of beauty. But if it's all random, who are we to call it beautiful?
Well, and here's the other thing too, is that, I mean, because the album is a celebration of evolution, of Darwinian evolution. Here's the thing. Noticing that there is beauty in the world is not, how do I word this right? If Darwinian evolution is true, then as a species, we have to be concerned with the survival of our species, survival of the fittest.
Not with beauty.
Not with beauty. Alvin Plantinga has an argument called the evolutionary argument against naturalism, where he shows that that the survival of a species trumps and defeats naturalism, because naturalism offers no value in survival. Knowing the truth does not necessarily lead to survival. In fact, if survival is the goal of Darwinian evolution, if that is what we as a species are to attain for, then believing falsehood, things that aren't true, if it leads to our survival, ought to be preferred, because that's the thing from which all things must cave into. Will it help us as a species survive? Noticing beauty doesn't necessarily help us survive.
No, not at all.
I was about to say, like, what are you to say? And
Well,
yeah,
I mean, in some way, if you think about it, like, all of us have looked at a meal and think, this is beautiful. And then you eat that food because of its beauty and because of how good it smells and the deliciousness of its taste, and it
then
helps you survive.
and then your gut hurts, and you're like, why did I eat that?
Yeah.
And then it counteracts the sense of the beautiful.
I mean, that's the only I can think of where beauty helps you survive. And also, just let's think about the naturalism and evolution and stuff in relation to Dawkins himself. He's not a big man at all.
No.
So if it's about survival of the fittest, under his worldview, why should he be allowed to live?
Oh my gosh.
No, I mean, seriously, think about it. I mean, he's talking about all this intellectual stuff and everything, which, I mean, I appreciate the intellectual side of things, but if it is truly survival of the fittest, then those very people who came up with it and postulate it and, fight for it, I mean, they're technically inferior because they're not the huge types of people you see like on WWE and that kind of stuff.
Well, I mean, I think he would. I think the evolutionists would counter that size doesn't always necessarily equate to survival, but even like with his statement, there's things that he says in his statement that just don't belong on his worldview, that just do not have any grounding on his worldview. The things that he says, that the appreciation of a sumptuous planet sparkling with color, bountiful with life, and the noble and enlightened way of spending our brief time under the sun to work at understanding the universe and our role in it, that doesn't belong on naturalism. That doesn't work on naturalism. That can't, because naturalism does not care or concern about... Naturalism doesn't care about how you spend your life. Because
unless it's reproducing and surviving.
Yeah, I mean, naturalism doesn't. I'll give a system for these things to even matter, because if there isn't a God, when we die, we're done, and we go back to the dust, and the dust doesn't care. The universe doesn't care. So there's these things that Dawkins say. Part of the reason why I like this album is because I can identify with some of the things that are said on this album. But I can identify with it because the Christian worldview allows for a framework for these things to be meaningful and something worth chasing after. We are running a little bit out of time. We should probably get to the third one. So this is Dawkins' third quote. This is a little bit lengthier, and this one is definitely a little bit lengthier and easily the most meaty of the bunch.
We are going to die, and that makes us the lucky ones. Most people are never going to die because they're never going to be born. The potential people who could have been here in my place, but who will in fact never see the light of day, outnumber the sand grains of Sahara. Certainly those unborn ghosts include greater poets than Keats, scientists greater than Newton. We know this because the set of possible people allowed by our DNA so massively exceeds the set of actual people. In the teeth of these stupefying odds, it is you and I, in our ordinariness, that are here. We privileged few who won the lottery of birth against all odds. How dare we whine at our inevitable return to that prior state from which the vast majority have never stirred?
Musically, I mean, the music for that section is really kind of awesome.
Yeah, which, first off, before we get into these points you have, I have to mention the two people that Dawkins mentioned, Keats and Newton.
Okay, go for it.
First off, Keats. He is considered to be one of the big six poets of the Romantic era. He died of tuberculosis when he was 25. Very unfortunate. But going back to what we were talking about before, caring about someone like Keats contradicts the doctrine of survival of the fittest. Who cares that a guy was around who wrote beautiful poetry? How does it help us survive?
Yeah.
And he's talking about these potential people that could have been greater than Keats. Who cares?
Yeah. No, definitely. And then Newton, I mean...
And Newton, while he did have a skewed view of the Trinity, he still claimed to be a Christian and did all of his scientific work in the name of the Christian God.
So
And
semi ironic.
yes, definitely semi-ironic when Dawkins, the staunch atheist, is citing, out of all of the scientists he could have mentioned, he mentioned Newton.
Yeah, because I mean Dawkins has definitely not been favorable in the past to Christians involved in the sciences, and so he to hear him make a reference to Newton as a great scientist. I mean, that's surprising. I'm certainly not going to disagree with him that Newton was an amazing scientist, but this particular quote is it's just confusing on so many levels because we are going to die, and that makes us the lucky ones.
Which, under the Christian worldview, it is very lucky that Christians are going to die because then we get to go be with Jesus.
And Christians are free from this body of sin and death and decay upon death, and we are reunited with our Savior into the way things should have been.
But if we die and then just oblivion, who cares?
Yeah, lucky in terms of what? That we had, 60, 70, 80 years to, live life and study the universe and, and do things. I mean, again, under naturalism, who cares? Or what cares, I should say. Why are they appealing for validity about their actions and the fact that they have life if their life is not, if their ultimate telos, if their ultimate end and design for their life is to just go back to the dust and be forgotten? Why?
Like, honestly, if I believed all these things that atheists believe, I would just be a hedonist, be as destructive. I mean, I wouldn't care about destruction to myself, destruction to others, just do everything for the sake of my pleasure. And then once everything started caving in on itself and my hedonism was starting to backfire, I'd commit suicide. Because who cares?
Yeah, and this is what frustrates, and this is what I think the broader apologetics community has really mentioned quite a few times in talking about Dawkins, is that Dawkins has a romantic view on life and existence that gave the new atheist movement quite a bit of like energy and wings to fly, but doesn't necessarily mesh well with the great atheists of old, Sartre, Rousseau. The great atheists of old, and I say that tongue-in-cheek semi, who had, some of them had borderline nihilistic understandings of reality.
Nietzsche.
Yeah, Nietzsche. How did I forget about Nietzsche? And so Dawkins doesn't necessarily mesh well with his predecessors who have gone on before him. But, I mean, and also we've got to remember that Dawkins is not a philosopher. In fact, as he has been exposed to be many times, he's not the best philosopher at all, but he's a scientist. But even still, his scientific statements rely on some presuppositions that don't belong on naturalism, that naturalism has no room either for them to exist or for them to matter. I mean, he can say, we are going to die, and that makes us the lucky ones. Most people are never going to die because they're never going to be born. Okay, why does that matter, though? Like, that's a fact. Okay, most people are never going to die because they're never going to be born. Okay, that might be a fact, just kind of, out there, whatever, but why does that necessarily matter? Why does that matter at all? There is no room, there is no system of value under naturalism. There is none. That's one of the things that they borrow from the Christian worldview, is that they assume that life is valuable. And we would say that life is valuable. Life is a gift from God. But they want to acknowledge that life has value, but deny the giver of life who makes such life possible.
And deny any standard for the value of life.
Yeah, I mean, they'll take from those standards as they want, but
I mean, even if you're an agnostic, you'll at least have something that you point to for a standard. An atheist has nothing.
They have nothing that they can legitimately point to. The unbeliever has nothing that they can point to that can justify their disbelief against God, because the reasoning that gives them their supposed reasons for not believing in God had to come from somewhere. And if there is no God, and if life is an accident, and life just happened because of chance and other random factors, well, okay, reasoning faculties are there, but they're just kind of out there. Or our reasoning came from something else to point to something else. Wow, we have already hit past our time limit, so let's just make it a little bit of a longer episode than normal. Let's just go to the fourth statement.
Well, we didn't even talk about the. Okay.
Yeah, let's just go ahead and go on to statement 4. There's grandeur in this view of life, with its several powers having been originally breathed into a few forms or into one, and that whilst this planet has gone on cycling on according to the fixed law of gravity from so simple a beginning, endless forms most beautiful and most wonderful have been, and are being, evolved. That's the closing remark that Dawkins makes on the album, and that's a quote from Charles Darwin in his work, The Origin of the Species, which contains, the title track, Endless Forms Most Beautiful, in the name of the album. When this quote particularly occurs in the album, it's at a point in the closing track where it's just kind of petering out and starting to wrap up or whatever. Darwin is a fascinating character. Like, not gonna lie, I find Darwin to be a very interesting man. I definitely studied him some in high school, and I find him to be an interesting man. I am not gonna lie. The inclusion of this, as far as its relation to the album, okay, fine, but I don't know. I just didn't find this particular quote to be necessary. Now, they wanted it in their album. That's fine. They can have it in their album, but it doesn't necessarily add much to what the rest of the album hasn't already filled in.
They were able to quote Endless Forms Most Beautiful, which is the name of the album, but otherwise it does seem kind of weird to put it there. Yeah,
well, especially when they put it at the very tail end of the album. So we need to note, but before we finish our worldview thoughts of it, we just need to note that this is not, that even though Nightwish brought Dawkins in and had Dawkins contribute to the album, that these are Dawkins statements first and foremost, and that Nightwish had him on that album consents that Dawkins is a representative of Nightwish and their beliefs.
Definitely.
But it's not as if the whole album's worldview understanding consists in those couple of statements. Weak fantasy is a pretty obvious attack against religion in general. And then there are a couple of other statements throughout the album that are problematic. And so even though we've spoken mainly of Dawkins, Dawkins is in many ways representing Nightwish because he is, as far as this album goes, because he is supplying the raw worldview information that gives context to the rest of the album. We could go on and on and on, and maybe we'll visit this again down the road with some other people who could offer some different perspectives about the worldview content of this album. But as far as a grade, let me go ahead and assign a grade here. As far as the worldview goes, I'm going to put it at a 2.
Yeah, 2's good.
Okay, so you're on the same page as me. The reason for that being is that when you take it seriously, and maybe they weren't meaning it for us to subject it to any kind of examination whatsoever. I don't know. I don't know what their motivation was necessarily for doing this, other than to make an album about things they care about. But we take these things seriously because ideas have consequences. Ideas have very powerful, life-changing consequences. And as Christians, we care about truth. And obviously, as Christians, we believe that truth is contained in the Bible and the gospel of Jesus Christ, and that the Christian worldview best accounts for the things that we see and experience in reality. And that the Christian worldview gives ground to meaning, to value, to purpose, and that to find meaning and life and purpose outside of the Christian worldview is to borrow. It's just outright borrow it from the Christian worldview. As one analogy that I've heard before goes, it's like sitting in the lap of the Father and slapping him in the face.
Yeah.
We are taking for granted the things that he has given us, and then in turn using those things to deny him. So not all of this album is super intellectual. There are several songs that aren't necessarily worldview driven in any way, but it's definitely there through the rest of the album. So when it comes to the intellectual content, I have to put it at a low grade because even just the brief time that we've spent examining it, there's some holes here. There's some pretty serious holes here. So you gave it a 2. What were your other grades?
They're all the same as you, except for my I'm brain farting right now. The validity, I put an 8.5, whereas you put it at an 8.
I see. So I guess if I were to pin this album to finally get to this point, I'm going to put it at a 7.5, which I would love to be able to give this album a higher grade because, like we talked about earlier on, I like this album. Like, musically, this album is incredible, and it's worth listening to. I would say it's worth listening to at least once. But the worldview content here is something that we had to deal with, and even though our analysis was short and was not necessarily the most formal analysis ever, we found it wanting. We find it wanting, and we would have liked to have seen this album reflect the Christian worldview and reflect the truth that the Christian worldview allows for these things to have meaning and purpose and value. Atheism and naturalism, we contend, does not. It cannot. So, all that to say, Nightwish is Endless Form's most beautiful. I pin it at a 7.5.
Yeah.
The longest review I think we've ever done.
Yes, which could have easily been much longer.
Oh yeah, I mean we were pushing the time for this episode, but I don't care at this point. Yeah, we definitely could have gone a lot longer in talking about it, and we might visit this again down the road. Maybe if we can get some others who might disagree with us. I would love to have other views challenge us on this, and I would love to be able to talk with others and have them explain why they think that we're wrong, because hey, that's fun. I think it's fun.
Definitely. I love debates.
Well, I'm not talking about like in the debate sense, but like just the give and take, I guess you could say. So yeah, 7.5 out of 10. Brett, you're on the same page with me there.
Yeah.
Okay, so Brett, what's coming out next week?
Next week we have Need to Breathe Live from the Woods.
Which that is a live album from their Tour de Compadres, which includes Ben Rector, Switchfoot, someone else whose name is escaping me, but
Hailstorms Into the Wildlife.
you can have that one if you want.
Yeah, we'll see. Reba McEntire's Love Somebody. You can have that one.
No, you can have
no,
that.
No,
please be my guest. I insist. As a reward for all of your hard work, please, you may have Reba McEntire for next week.
Maybe we should get Thomas to do it.
No. I only put that in there just because it made me laugh.
And we also have Instant Gratification by Dance Gavin Dance.
You can have that if you want. I know that I felt terrible because I totally forgot to mention that Josh Garrell's new album Home came out last week, and I totally forgot to mention it on last week's show. It just I looked at the wrong version of my notes, and it missed the punch. And so, yeah, Josh Garrell's new album came out. You should definitely go and listen to it. Brett, let's get into recos, and let's start winding down this very very thought heavy show.
Well, a while back, while I was skimming Netflix for animes, I saw one called Ghost Hunt, and saw that it was an anime about sort of a paranormal investigation team. Didn't have time to watch it then, didn't put it on my list, forgot what the name of it was for a few months. Well, found it again, and started watching a few episodes of it, and it's really good.
Okay.
I mean, it has half-hour-long episodes, but each episode is part of a multi-part file, which goes into the deeper investigations of paranormal activity, which if you're into some of the paranormal activity reality shows, it's in a very similar vein to it.
Oh, okay.
And also goes into slice-of-life style animes.
Oh, okay. Very nice, very nice. I got two. One is in passing. I know I've reccoded this before, but I've been drinking it during this episode. Deschutes Black Butte Porter. Man, I love this porter so much. How was that Pilsner, by the way?
It had a Sierra Nevada Nooner, and I mean, it was a very good Pilsner.
Okay, so You're the guinea pig for when it came to that particular beer. I was like, I'll just let Brett buy it and Brett can try it and, see how it is. But yeah, I was like, ooh, Pilsner, which, dang it, I totally did not drink my Black Butte in my brand new Pilsner glass.
Well, you're not supposed to drink porters in Pilsner glasses anyway.
Well, maybe that's a good thing then, but I don't have any Pilsners at my disposal at the moment. Anyway, that has nothing to do with my next reco. So last night, I had the distinct honor, and by last night I mean Saturday night, I had the distinct honor of seeing the Amarillo Opera perform Les Mis. Oh my gosh, it was so good. Paid $15 for a balcony seat. Got way more than $15 should have been. Like, I should have paid much more for that show. I know that for many people, and myself included, our first exposure to Les Mis is the recent film starring Hugh Jackman, Russell Crowe, Anne Hathaway, which is a great movie. Like, I mean, as far as a movie goes, it's not bad. It's really good. But I gotta say, the live action, the cast for this particular show matched and beat every single performance of the movie, and had so much more passion and emotion to it than the movie conveyed. And I also have to say that the Master of the House segment live, oh man, so funny. The woman that they got to play Theriner's wife, oh man, she was fantastic. Like, she was just so freaking funny. And yeah, by the time you're listening to this, if you're an Amarillo resident, the show will be over and they will have finished their run of it. But yeah, if they ever do it again, go and see it. Don't miss it. It was incredible. I was blown away. I mean, I paid $15 for it thinking like, oh, this will be, a fun local performance of Les Mis or whatever. I mean, it's not going to hold a candle to, the movie or any serious performance of it. But no, I was wrong. I was so wrong. This was, it was outstanding. You want to talk about doing an episode where we could go, we could do a whole episode on this. I could just do a whole episode of me saying how awesome Les Mis was. But I don't think you want to hear that.
Nah, I wouldn't want to hear it.
Okay. I appreciate your honesty, Brett.
No problem.
All right. Well, Brett, thanks for taking time out of your Sunday to do this serious show of mine, which I got to say was more serious than a couple of shows we've had as of late, but that's okay. So thanks for taking time out of your Sunday to do this, as usual.
Yeah, no problem.
And thank you, dear listeners, for bothering to listen in on the show, and we appreciate you listening to us. Next week's show, what are we going to do next week, Brett?
Next week, we're going to be in Oklahoma, so there will be no show.
What?
JK.
I was about to say, whoa. That is not what we talked about.
No, next week we will be in Oklahoma for Record Store Day, and so we will have a special Record Store Day episode.
Yes, we're going to go be seeing our fellow staffer from the camp that must not be named, and we might also have another AAL staffer on the show. That's kind of in the works at the moment. Yeah, we're gonna go vinyl hunting. We're gonna have some good beer and some good burgers. Yeah, so next week's episode is definitely gonna be a little bit different as well. So again, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. All that to say, if you want to contact us, especially if you have any questions about anything we said in this episode, you can get a hold of us on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter at AALblog. You can send us an email, and honestly, for this, I would prefer, if you got something to talk about the Nightwish stuff, I would prefer you email us. You can email us at anotherascendinglark@gmail.com. And then, of course, you can visit the website, anotherascendinglark.com. But in particular, if you have anything that you want to ask us about, anything we said on the Nightwish commentary, feel free to hit us up. Like, we are not afraid to talk about this. We want to talk about this and enjoy talking about this, and we will be more than willing to chat with you on that. So other than that, hope you guys have a great, fantastic week. Do not forget that this Saturday is Record Store Day, so even if you don't have a vinyl player, go out, go find some records. If you got a local record store still, you're like, don't pass that up. Go buy some records. And other than that, y'all have a great week. We will see you next week.